All right, welcome. If you're just joining us for our Sales Newbies webinar, go ahead and put something in the chat window to let us know that you are here. We would love to hear who's here and what's going on and where you're from and so on. That would be cool. And we're just waiting for some things to fire up that should be firing up here. Let's see what I need to do here. Maybe I need to turn that on. Oh, that put a whiteboard on there, but that's interesting. John and I were just talking about the fact that we do this once every blue moon, which is not often enough. We used to do webinars every month.
Right.
And then we knew what we were doing. Now we do them once now we do them once a quarter, which is not often enough to figure out what we're doing. And then we knew what we were doing. Now we do them once every. All right. Okay, so we're glad you're here. If you are new to sales but old to aviation, you're in the right place. We work with an awful lot of people who are professionals in the aviation industry that are very, very smart and very, very good at what they do, which is great. And a lot of the folks that we work with are flight crew, they're pilots, they are engineers, they're product developers, they are other folks that are in different areas of the aviation industry. We've actually worked with real rocket scientists, haven't we?
Yes, we have, as a matter of fact.
Okay, so I'm Paula Williams.
I'm John Williams.
And we are ABCI, and ABCI's mission is
to help all you folks out there in the aviation world sell more products and services.
Absolutely. And if you've been listening to our podcast or if you visited our website, you know that our main focus is really on marketing. So why are we doing a webinar on sales?
That's a good question. Why?
Self-defense. It's self-defense because a lot of the folks that we work with, we do marketing for, and then they get these leads coming in and they have no idea or they're really uncomfortable with things like sales, like answering the phone, like picking up the phone with somebody requests information from them. Or a lot of times they're asked to bid on projects or they're asked to participate in some kind of a sales process, and they have they are pilots, they're mechanics, they're rocket scientists, they're not really salespeople and they don't really know how to proceed next and they're kind of uncomfortable. Is that fair to say?
Well, we've had at least one client that we were doing his marketing for and all the stats were great.
Yeah.
And they weren't making
like, you
any
must
sales.
be making a ton of sales, but no.
And come to find out, they weren't even calling the people
who were requesting phone calls.
They were requesting phone calls. I
right.
mean, our marketing is good, but it's not that good. You have to pick up the phone and call somebody.
Right. If you drop the ball, we really can't help you. So, that's what we're here to do today, is to help people who are in the midst of that situation. Maybe they're hiring people to do sales for them, and that can work well or badly, but you need to know some basics in order to make that work. So this is for people who know a lot about aviation, but not a lot about sales. If that is you, then you are certainly in the right place, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to put a poll on the screen. I'm going to try and put a poll on the screen.
I think it's already on the screen.
Is it? Okay. So there may be a poll on your screen that says, what is your biggest concern about sales? One is appearing too salesy, having more sales tasks to do than time to do them, or 3, not knowing what to say. Now, all of those things are things we're going to address today, but I kind of wanted to get a feel for your thoughts. If you can see that poll, great. If you can't see that poll, let us know in the chat window that you can't see that poll. It looks like it's up, so that's fantastic. Okay, so we'll carry on and you can answer that when you feel comfortable. Okay, so in our experience, there are 2 types of salespeople. There are professional salespeople and there are accidental salespeople, right? Okay, professional salespeople are people who deliberately chose the path of making sales, and they've had maybe some training from Sandler or from Dale Carnegie or from someone. They have accepted that this is their role in the organization. They understand how vital that is to be making sales, and that is their job. The other kind of salespeople are what we call accidental salespeople, and those are folks who are entrepreneurs or who are in a situation where they are forced to make sales, right?
Right.
Okay. But it doesn't matter whether you deliberately entered the field of sales or whether you're accidentally here. It is really important to understand that you can be really good at it or you can be really awful at it, right?
Right. Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually one or the other.
You've met people who are professional salespeople who chose to do this for a living who are really, really awful.
Oh, yes.
Okay, and so have I. We've also met some people who were airline pilots who, they fly for 2 weeks and then they're off for 2 weeks, or, their schedule varies a little bit, but that's the general idea. And they started a company and they are really, really good at sales, and they devote their time to reading books. They devote their time to learning new techniques. They try things out on us, and they're really good, right?
Right.
Okay, so it is possible to be an accidental salesperson and still be really good at it. So
And
there's
as long
hope
as
for
you
you.
practice what the right things are, you being good really quick and easy.
Exactly. So if you got to do it, you might as well be good, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So is there anybody here, and you can answer in the chat window or however you like, who is a deliberate salesperson or an accidental salesperson? If you want to fess up to that, that's fine. If you don't, you can keep that to yourself. But we'd love to hear what you have to say and what's going on in your head if this is resonating with you. Okay, so how do you become a great salesperson, whether you're here accidentally or on purpose?
Starts with an attitude.
Right. It starts with an attitude.
I mean, a good attitude.
Really? Starts with any old attitude. No. There are three things that are really important. And, of course, the first being attitude, second being assets. And what I mean by assets is tools, templates, things that are going to help you. And we have some of those that we're going to share with you today that you can download and take with you. So you're going to leave here with some good tools. So second is assets, and third is accountability. Nobody is good at sales without some kind of accountability.
Right.
It's kind of, for me anyway, I'm an accidental salesperson, I'll tell you that. I started a company with no intention of doing sales. I actually hired a sales guy to begin with. I thought he'll take care of all of this for me. I never have to touch that part of the business. I can just do fabulous marketing, and work will get shoved under the door to me, and it will be wonderful because we've got somebody doing sales, right?
You saw how good that worked.
It didn't. It didn't work at all well. So my attitude was, I don't like sales. I don't want to do it. I'm going to get somebody to do it. I'm going to farm that out, and that will be the end of it, and then I never have to touch it again.
Yep.
No worky, right?
No worky.
Okay. So yeah, let's first start with attitude, because that really is the most important thing. We've seen people with no assets and very little accountability do pretty well at sales, at least once or twice, if they've got a fantastic attitude. So the first thing is, are you in denial, right? This is a banana that thinks it's an apple. And as hard as it tries to convince other people that it is an apple, it still is a banana, right?
I've never seen a banana that knew how to think.
Well, this one is insisting that it's an apple, right?
Sure.
And it doesn't matter how big and how loud it writes the word apple on itself, it is still a banana. This reminds me of when people call me, it happens very often, and they say, I'm not trying to sell you anything, right?
Really? Why did you call me?
That is a banana that is screaming apple, right? And the immediate effect is BS, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to trust anything else that you say because you're not being honest with yourself, or you're not being honest with me, one or the other. On the other hand, when I make a sales call, I will tell people I am absolutely trying to sell you something because you're in a situation where I think this would be good for you, and here's why. Mm-hmm. So I have absolutely no problem with calling myself a banana. I'm going to be an ethical banana, right? I'm going to be an ethical salesperson, and I'm going to do my best to make sure that the people that I call or the people that I approach are perfect for the product or service that I offer, and that it's going to help them in some way. But I'm going to be honest about it, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so a lot of salespeople are lying to themselves, saying, this isn't sales. There's no selling involved. I've seen a lot of
No, it's
ads like
called
that.
business development.
It's business development or it's marketing when they're actually doing sales.
Right.
So yeah, that's a really interesting phenomenon. So first thing I'd like you to do with yourself is to think about how you feel about sales. You know, maybe you've had some bad experiences with sales. My dad used to hate salespeople with a purple passion, right? And it's because he had run into some really, really bad ones. And so if he knew that I was in sales right now, he's actually passed away since then. But, you know, I don't know how I would feel about that. You know, is that an anxiety that I have that I put on myself because of my dad's expectations of hating salespeople?
Huh.
But I need to come to grips with that and say, you know what? I think he'd be pretty proud of what I do because what I do is actually helping people and I'm not approaching people that are inappropriate for our product.
Right.
So anyway, think about your own attitude. Think about how you can adjust that and embrace your banana, right? Okay.
Exactly.
We could go all kinds of places with that, but we'll keep it clean, right? So
Right.
how clean are your motives? Uh, this actually, there's a really good episode in the Advanced Selling podcast by Bill Caskey and Brian Neal that goes into this in a way that I really like the way they say it. And it is, you know, before I make a sales call, I think about, are my motives clean? And I have the luxury of, now I have the luxury, I didn't always have the luxury of keeping the finances separate from the sales activities. I used to have that on my mind. You know, we've got this due, we've got that due, we've got to make some money this week or else we're going to die, right? And now, thanks to our CFO, um, he actually keeps that really well under control. We keep our spending way under what we make, which is really nice. And he manages the cash flow in a way that I don't have to worry about it so much. So I can approach a sales call clean, right? And I can approach it from the customer's point of view and not drag my own dirty laundry into that of we've got this bill and that bill and the other bill and I'm in it for myself. I'm not in it for the customer, right?
And if you appear desperate, people sense that and they'll just shut you down.
Right, exactly. So every time I make a sales call, I actually take a few minutes to check in with my attitude and go, how do I feel about this person that I'm going to call? You know, how do I feel about their company? Is this somebody that I really want to work with? And maybe if they're not, I want to think about why, you know, and I want to think about, you know, is this someone that I want to approach? And also, is my own motive clean? And am I approaching this thinking only about the customer or am I thinking about myself? And if I'm thinking about myself, then I need to back up and look at the finances, make sure we're okay so that I can convince myself that we're fine before anything else happens, right? So that's an attitude that comes across. I could tell you what to say in a sales call, right? We could go through the mechanics of that, but people read a whole lot more into behind what the words are. It's 80% attitude and 20% the words that you say. So they can smell your attitude. If your attitude is not clean, you don't smell clean, right? Okay. All right. So you want to focus on the person that you're talking with, and I touched on this earlier when we talked about going in thinking only about the customer. And this is really how you help not be self-conscious. Is you think only about the customer, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's their life like? What are their problems? What's going on for them? How can I help them?
And no matter how large the company, you're talking to one person.
Right. A lot of people think, you know, well, I'm in business to business sales. I have to convince this company that they need to do this. No, you're thinking about a single person that you have to convince, even if the only thing you need to sell this guy is take me to your leader, right?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. It's one person at a time.
Right. Or introduce me to somebody at your company who makes these kinds of decisions. So it's always one person at a time. That's absolutely right. Okay. We're going to get to a point where we're answering questions in just a few minutes. If you have a question, you can go ahead and put it in the chat window, but we'll get to it in just a couple of minutes. Another thing you want to do is get a great sales coach. Professional athletes have coaches about how to swing a tennis racket or how to swing a baseball bat. It is so much more complex to make a sales call than it is to swing a baseball bat, right? I mean, and if you've got a coach doing nothing but telling you how to swing a baseball bat, it is perfectly legitimate and you make a whole lot more money, or at least I make a whole lot more money doing sales than I would swinging a baseball bat, right? Well, of course, I'm not in that profession, right? Okay. So having a sales coach is another great way to adjust your attitude and to help you through some of these things, and also to maybe rehearse some calls that you're nervous about. And John makes a really great um, skeptical customer. So he does a really good job of helping people work through some of those jitters. If you can get a really successful sales call with John, then when you get on with a real customer, you're going to feel a whole lot better about it. So coaching really helps. Okay, so you want to adjust your attitude daily, right? You can't just do this once and think, okay, I'm good. You have to think about it. Actually, I do before every sales call. They say attitudes don't last, but neither does bathing. That's why we have to do it daily, right? And when we do coaching with people, we usually do it monthly, and that really helps people. They say they make a whole lot better sales calls in the days right after we do a coaching, and then it kind of starts to fall off toward the end of the month, and then they see us again. So some of those folks we may want to have a more frequent relationship with. Uh, Also, like when you go to the dentist, I always floss really well the night before I go to a dentist, and that's not necessarily a thing that I do every day with the same amount of enthusiasm. But when you have a coach, it forces you to think about it and to follow all those habits that you know you should, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Questions about attitude?
Well,
Yeah. Some people, if you want to submit these in the chat window or in the QA window, you can do that. Or if you want to submit them privately, you can do that publicly or privately. If you don't want anybody to know who you are, you can do that too, right?
yes.
Okay, so questions.
This particular one says, I always choke up when talking about price. How do I get better at that?
Okay, yeah, this is an attitude thing. And I have a lousy attitude, I have had, in the past, I have struggled with my attitude about math. So, it kind of bothers me when people start negotiating or when people start talking about price, uh, partly because of anxiety about math and partly because of anxiety about anxiety, right? So, what I need to do on a frequent and regular basis is look at our prices and compare them to things. And so this is just like when your kids are in school and you're going through their flashcards and things like that. You could make flashcards for yourself about these are the prices that I have. These are the objections that people make based on price. Here are some comparisons to other things that they could buy that are about the same price that aren't going to give them the value. And if you've done that practicing, you're going to feel a whole lot better about talking price. Another thing you can do is in your office hours with us or with your sales coach, if you have one, is to practice those conversations about price. It's kind of like when you're coming in for a landing. I had a really hard time with short field landings. And so what I eventually did is on a flight simulator, just kept backing up to that one spot where I had trouble and kept going through that and going through that and going through that until I got over it. And now spot landings are like my favorite thing in the world, right?
Oh, we had to have a little flying lesson going on.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Out on a simulator, and we
Right.
couldn't back up the airplane. We actually
Right.
went out and did it by the numbers.
Absolutely. So the more you practice, the better your attitude becomes, especially if it's something that you have anxiety about, like numbers, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Other questions? Are we good?
No. What do I do if the prospect wants to negotiate?
Okay. You might want to think about what is causing this person to think that they can negotiate. So our prices are pretty hard and fast, and they're on a product sheet that we send out to them. It's really nicely printed and in a nice folder and things like that. So there are some things that you can do that will make people think, not give them the subconscious clue that this is open for negotiation. So if they have it on a piece of paper ahead of time that's nicely printed, they're going to think, okay, this is what they charge everybody. This is not a flexible number, as opposed to if you tell them, oh, I don't know, I think I can maybe do this for, $6,000. Then they think, how about $5,000, So you want to make it seem like, and you can do this with your marketing materials and also with your sales techniques, make this sound more set in stone before you get to that point. And then they're less likely to try to negotiate with you. Once they start negotiating, there are some things that you could do. I don't know if we want to go into that. We could write a whole book on how to negotiate, but I would rather not. I just take that off the table to begin with, right?
Right. You just tell them that's the price.
That's the price. The price is the price, right? Okay.
And one more.
Okay.
What are some good ways to close the sale?
Close the sale. Okay, everybody wants to know what are the magic words to close the sale and make them buy.
When you find out what they are, you let me know.
Right. This is the aviation industry, and the people who are doing the buying are very, very smart people, and they are not likely to fall for any of the tricks that you could read out of a book or that you could learn from a training. So, my thought is that closing is a trick, right? The sale will close itself if you make the customer understand how it benefits them. Then the urgency is going to be on their side. They're going to say, when can we get started? I would much rather have a relationship with a customer that's pushing me than the other way around. Okay, so your job is to make them understand why they want the product. Their job is to ask you for the product and say, okay, when can we get started? What do you need to get started? How does that work? So I'm not a fan of closes.
Now, there are
How about you?
a couple of things you need to remember. And
Mhm.
one is you're not trying to sell to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a good, I don't know where the line came from, but 20% of the people nobody can sell to.
Right.
So just figure that out, figure out who you're talking to, and maybe they're one of the 20%.
Right.
20% of the people don't need to be sold, they're going to buy.
Mm-hmm.
So the people you're really after are the 60%.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the people you got to go for.
That's
I
true.
forgot what I was going to say next, so you keep going and I'll remember it.
Okay. So I think I know where you were going. I'm not really sure, but so some of those people, the 20%, are going to trip over themselves to buy your product.
Mhm.
And if you continue with your sales pitch, you're just annoying them, right?
Oh, yes. And the other
Mhm.
thing is, during your sales process, there are three things that are considered a successful close.
Mm-hmm.
That's a yes, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
No is good.
Mm-hmm.
Then you don't waste any more time on them.
Right.
And then the not yet, and you say, okay, then you set another date for another conversation and figure out what they need and get it.
Exactly. So yes, no, or not yet. And any of those is a good conclusion to a sales call.
That's right.
So and the not yet, you want to be specific about, I'm waiting for the new budget at the end of the month, or I need some more information, or we need to consult with my boss, or whatever those things are. You want to be specific about that.
Exactly.
But a yes, no, or a specific not yet, all three are a good conclusion to a sales call, even though they're not a close, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So if you're not, I think closes are manipulative. You're not trying to manipulate this person. You're trying to get to a yes, no, or a not yet. Right? You're not trying to get them to a yes if it's not a yes, if it's not a good fit for them. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. I don't know if that answers that person's question. You can chat back if you want to, if you have some more to that you want to talk about. Okay, so that's attitude, and attitude being the most important of the three items. But assets are what everybody is here for, I suspect, right? Everybody wants to know, what are the checklists, what are the tools, what are the processes, how do I make this work, right? Okay, fair enough. There are some things that you can use, and aviation people are addicted to checklists, and for good reason. They work. You can adjust them. You can add things to them as you discover, I need to add something else to this process so I don't screw up next time. It really takes the anxiety out of a lot of what we do as salespeople. It takes a lot of the uncertainty out of what we do as salespeople. I always know what to do next, right?
Don't be afraid to add a line item to your checklist.
Yeah, don't be afraid to add a line item to your checklist. And you can start with checklists that we've built or that other people in the industry have built, and then make them your own. So if you start with something that you know is already successful for somebody, then you have a place to start and you're not just swimming in the dark.
Right.
And when I started, I have to tell you, I picked up the phone and I called the president of Cessna, right? And anyway,
First sales call.
I know, my very first sales call. And I'm like, hi there, my name is Paula Williams, and I'm just wondering who's doing your copywriting right now, your sales copywriting. And he's like, what's copywriting? Actually, we have a lawyer that does our patents and so on. And he had no idea what I was talking about. I was talking to the wrong person. I was completely out of order. I had no preparation at all that I did with this. And it was just so embarrassing. I just wanted to crawl into a hole and never make a sales call again, right?
Exactly.
He was actually very gracious about the whole thing and very nice, but I could tell that he was annoyed to hear from me, and I was wasting his time. So what checklists and outlines and scripts and processes do is they ensure that you aren't wasting your time and you're not wasting anybody else's, right?
Exactly.
That is, I swear, it's not the biggest sin in aviation sales, but it is up there, wasting someone's time, right? Especially a prospect, because we have a limited number of prospects.
Mm-hmm.
So if we ruin somebody's day, or waste an hour of their time, that is almost an unforgivable sin, right? Okay, but I've done it and I've lived, so it can be done. All right, so let's talk about some of the checklists and scripts that we use. One of them is our sales call checklist. This is one of the most important things that I rely on because sales calls are a huge anxiety for me, or have been in the past a huge anxiety for me. So I print out this sales call checklist, a variation of it that I've customized for myself, and you can use this one or start with this one and modify it for yourself. And you can download this. We'll have that available before the end of the webinar. I take this, I go to LinkedIn, I fill in some blanks, I find out more about their company, I find out more about them personally. I am totally prepared for every sales call that I ever make because I was so freaked out by that first one that I never want to have that problem again. But what this does is it makes me a whole lot more comfortable, and it also makes the person that I'm calling feel a whole lot more comfortable because I'm not fishing, and they know this isn't going to be an irrelevant, high pressure, stupid call, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I use a checklist every single time I make a sales call. You can also use a checklist every single time someone calls in your office. So you can have a checklist right next to your phone. Check things off. Make sure that you've talked about. If they ask about a particular product or service, we have this special going on. Here's some benefits to this over the competitors. Other kinds of things to make sure that you have those facts and figures at your fingertips, right? Okay. Polish comes from practice, and practice comes from some magic tools like these checklists and other things. Okay. Another thing that I do is script, especially if this is going to be a complex call with somebody, and I've been introduced by somebody, or maybe I'm not really clear about what they do or how things work. I'm going to script out the first half of that call, and it may not go according to that script, right?
Well, you have to be flexible.
You have to be flexible, but I feel so much better if I've scripted out that call, and I actually scripted out to this level. This is Paula Williams with ABCI. We're connected on LinkedIn, and I noticed that you're an aircraft broker. Can you tell me about what you specialize in? This may be somebody that I really want to do business with because I've seen something that they do, right? Okay, are you seeing that business is better or worse this year? So I'm starting with them, regardless of, I may have my own reasons for talking to this person because I've seen some horrible marketing that they're doing and I think we can do better. I'm not going to start with that. I'm not going to start with stuff about me, and I'm not going to start with something negative. I'm going to start with them, and we're going to start with something positive. So tell me about what you specialize in. Are you seeing that business is better or worse this year? I want your perspective. You tell me what's going on. And eventually he'll get around to the fact that, maybe my marketing is not doing what I want it to do. And so slow can be fast and 1,000 times more efficient. So I'll take quite a bit of time preparing for a sales call, and I do a lot more scripting, I think, than most people probably do, right? Okay, another tool is a lead generator. Now, this is something that is on your website, something like a buyer's guide to whatever product or service that you offer, or a tip sheet, or something along those lines that people who are your ideal customer really, really want. And it's something that they're willing to give their email address and maybe a phone number for, right?
Right.
Because they don't give those up as easily as they used to.
Exactly.
It's not sign up for my newsletter. Nobody's going to do that unless they understand what is the value I'm going to get out of this.
And you can't email them unless they sign in and opt in anymore without getting violation of the U.S. Spam Act.
Or the Canadian Can Spam Act, or the EASA European regulations and things like that.
GDPR and so on.
Right. So you want to make sure that people are opting into something that, one, has a really high value for them, and number two, that they are giving you permission to market to them in the future, and they're understanding that they're requesting information from you.
Exactly.
Wouldn't you rather spend your time, and this actually helps with the attitude as well.
Mm-hmm.
It is so much easier for me to pick up the phone and talk to somebody who has asked me to call them.
What a concept.
Right? It changes the power dynamic, it changes the structure of the relationship, it changes everything about the way that works rather than me reaching out to them first. So I really like doing that. So a lead generator can be a wonderful thing. Okay, so those are the assets we talked about: checklists, scripts, and lead generators. So questions about assets?
Well, there might be a couple.
Okay, and once again, you can enter these into the chat window at any time they occur to you. We're just going to get to them at specific times because, otherwise we mess up our flow, right?
Doesn't it sound fake or insincere when you use a script?
Right. Doesn't it sound fake or insincere when you use a script? No, quite frankly. I mean, it sounds fake or insincere if you are reading a script. If this is the first time you read it and it sounds like you're reading, then yeah.
Or you have to listen for a response. You don't ignore the response and go on to the next one.
Right. If you are being interactive, then
you have to be interactive.
They have no idea that you're using a script, right? Unless it's the first time that you're reading through it and you're struggling with your words. But when you do a script, what it does two things. One, it's a rehearsal of the call in your mind. And also, if you're writing it out longhand or writing it out on a computer, you are physically preparing for that sales call and you're forcing yourself into a physical process of preparing for that. So the only time it would sound fake is if you're reading a script that was written by somebody else, I think, right?
Likely.
Okay. Yeah, so hopefully that answers that question.
How much time should you use to prepare for a call?
How much time should you use to prepare for a call?
Besides, obviously, whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes, right? If it is a casual first-time sales call, somebody that I think I may have an interest in developing a relationship with or something like that, but I don't know that much about them, I might spend 15 minutes going to LinkedIn, going to their website, writing some notes for myself, filling out that checklist, and other kinds of things before I pick up the phone. So about 15 minutes. There have been times on a complex sales call where I know they're going to be asking questions and I can anticipate some things where I'll spend half a day preparing for a 15-minute sales call. I don't want to waste their time. I would rather spend that time myself. So, yeah.
And some examples of lead magnets for flight school.
Okay, for a flight school, examples of lead magnets. A career guide for pilots that has current salaries of, what you can expect in your first year after flight school, your second year after flight school, things like that. What is the market doing? What's going on with the pilot shortage? What do all the headlines mean? Those are all really helpful things for somebody who's considering being a pilot in the future. So you want to put yourself in the perspective of your customer or your customer's parents and say, what questions do they have? And how can I put together maybe a career guide or a market guide or an area guide or a buyer's guide? Maybe here are 10 things you should look for in a flight school. And here's how we stack up compared to some of the competitors that we know about. And maybe we're the best fit for you. Maybe we're not. If somebody is a dentist that wants to fly a Bonanza to appointments, we may not be the best flight school because we don't have flexible appointments. But if you want a career as an airline pilot, we can get you through in 8 months. And, so why are you the best choice for them? Some kind of a buyer's guide is almost always a really good example for anybody, right? Flight school or whomever. Okay. Next. Carry on?
Yep, carry on.
All right, carrying on. Okay. Last A, remember we talked about 3 A's. There was attitude, assets, and third is accountability, right? So accountability, and this one is overlooked, especially in very small organizations where we don't have very many people and we don't have very many hats to begin with, right? So how do I make metrics visible, and how do I get a coach who can help me with the metrics, right, or accountability? So the first thing you want to do is make your metrics visible. And this is just a whiteboard. You can use apps for this. You can use apps on your cell phone. There's a lot of different things that you can do. You can use Excel. There's lots of tools that different sales organizations have developed. This is one that I did for a long time on my whiteboard. I knew that we needed to reach a certain sales goal, and I knew I have about a 30% close rate once I get to a second call and once I've sent our blue folder, which is part of our sales process. Mm-hmm. So if I know I've got a 30% success rate from that point, and then I know that it takes 4 calls to send 1 folder, then I know it takes 12 initial calls to make a sale, right?
Right.
Okay. So calls, once I get to 12, I know I've got at least 1 appointment or, some number of appointments, and then I know I get to at least 1 sale for 12 calls. So you can figure out what your ratios are over time, and then you feel like you're making progress, even if all you're doing is making calls and getting no's. You're at least chalking up more hash marks on the board, and you're getting closer to those sales, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So you want to reward, and this is for sales managers especially out there, you want to reward activity, not result, right? Because your sales folks can control the amount of activity. They can control the number of hash marks in the first column to a great degree. They can control them in the second column to a lesser degree, and in the third column to a significantly lesser degree. That has more to do with the people they're calling and the weather and the market and other
their
things.
Need and their ability to pay and so forth.
Exactly. So you want to reward, and also if someone gives you a referral, you want to reward that referral, not whether you make the sale to that person, because that's your job. That's not
That's right.
The person's
job.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So you want to make your metrics visible where you're going to see them when you walk in, and where everybody else is going to see them. And John's going to walk by my board and say, "Wow, you've made a lot of calls today." That little boost is a wonderful thing. So that helps with attitude as well. So this might be an asset and an attitude and a accountability, right? Okay. Get a sales coach. So a lot of folks, there was actually a study that I read about people that have personal trainers versus people who don't have personal trainers and just show up at the gym whenever they feel like it and do whatever they want to do. People who have personal trainers show up at the gym on time because they have an appointment with their personal trainer. They work harder because somebody is watching them. And there's this human thing about, we want to impress people and we don't want to waste their time and we want to have them think well of us. So if you have someone who is holding you accountable, that makes a difference just for that. And then if you add on that they could actually give you some good advice and that they can do other things for you that you can't do for yourself, then, coaches become really indispensable, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Questions about accountability. That was our shortest section, but without knowing more specifics about you guys, I can't really help that much with accountability. Okay.
If you're a one-man band, how do you create accountability?
How do you create accountability if you're a one-man band? It is more important to create accountability if you're a one-man band. So you might want to create an accountability partnership with another entrepreneur or with another one-man band and say, every Friday we're going to check in with each other and talk about how many sales calls we made and just maybe send our spreadsheets over, exchange spreadsheets on email or Basecamp or something like that once a month. John and I, we're actually a 2-man shop, although John has his own company. He helps me with mine, so he takes that role for me. We actually go off-site once a week, go to a Starbucks and go over our sales numbers and things like that. And the fact that I have to prepare for that appointment makes me do more than I would otherwise, honestly. I know it's silly, but it's true. Okay?
Okay.
Cool. Other questions? Move on.
How do you maintain good morale when you're checking up on people all the time?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I know a little bit about the situation. If you have never checked up on your salespeople and then all of a sudden you start, you're going to ruin their morale for a little while, unless you are doing it in a positive way and you're rewarding them for making X number of sales calls. So number one, you can make it positive and tie their activity into what you're looking for, not the results into what you're looking for. So a lot of sales managers will just pour over the sales numbers with their sales team and beat them up over the fact that their numbers, actual sales numbers, revenues are down. Or they will beat them up even worse for saying that their net is down, which is not the salespeople's fault.
No.
I mean, it could be that you've got some expenses that they don't have any control over, right? So you only want to focus on what they have control over, and you want to reward good behavior. So if you start that from the beginning, then they're less likely to rebel. It's like having teenagers and cracking down on them. You can't do that. You have to have brought them up that way. Same thing with salespeople. From the time that you hire them, you have to let them know these are the expectations, and this is what I'm going to be looking for, and this is what we're going to reward, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, you can ruin salespeople's morale pretty easily, and then the whole attitude thing goes out the window, and then you've got 2/3 of a salesperson, right? No good. Okay, all right, carrying on. Okay, so we talked about the 3 A's, attitude, assets, and accountability. And I wanted to go back to the poll and look at what people talk about. Your biggest concern about sales, 75% of folks said that, folks on this call anyway, their biggest concern was appearing too salesy. So my advice about that is to go back to the attitude section, and especially the person that asked about closes, right? Think about, I guess, salesy can be code for manipulative, right? I don't think being enthusiastic is that much of a problem. There are people like Bill Caskey who says that you want to tone down the enthusiasm and be more credible. And you can do that, and that's fine. That has to fit your style. But as long as you're being authentic and you're not being manipulative, I don't think you're going to show up as salesy. Desperation plays into that as well, right? So you want to keep your motives clean.
And excited. If you're overly excited, though, it sounds like a used car guy trying to push through.
Yeah, this is so great, right? But if you focus on the other person, if you can tone down the enthusiasm a little bit, and if you can make sure that you're not pushing for a sale, but you're pushing for the right answer, whether that is a yes, no, or a not yet. Right. So what is the right answer for this person right now? And sometimes they'll give you a yes and you'll back them off and say, I don't think you're ready for this yet. Let's talk about a few things more before we make that decision. And that is the opposite of salesy.
Well, but then they will appreciate it more because then they know for sure you're being authentic.
Right, exactly. So appearing too salesy, that can also go into your assets. If you've got a checklist that you're working with and you're methodical and all of those things, then you appear workmanlike, not salesy. Okay. And then having more sales tasks to do than time to do them, the assets will help you with that. Because if you've got some templates and checklists and scripts that you can just pull out and reuse, you can just swap out the pieces that you need for each time. You're not starting from scratch every time. So hopefully that was helpful for that with your attitude, assets, and accountability. So we do have an offer that we can provide for you. And if it is the right thing for you, that is great. If it is the wrong thing for you, that is great. And if it is not the right time for you, that is fine as well, right? Okay. So am I trying to sell you something? I absolutely am, if this is the best thing for you at the moment and if it works with your finances, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay. So basically the way this works is we have a sales training that is specifically designed for aviation professionals. And we've been working on this for quite some time. We started this year. We've had a few people go through it and they love it. Can't say enough nice things about the interaction with other people who are in the field, with some of the specifics about the aviation field that they don't get from training from Sandler or Carnegie or anywhere else and things like that. So, and that course is $4.99, or we'll show you an offer where you can get it for $279 a month and get some additional things as well for that. So if it is the right thing for you, that's great. If it is not the right thing for you, that's also great. But okay, what includes is a sales coach, which we have talked about some of the ways that you could use a sales coach, but it includes office hours. So once a month, we spend time with you going over what your priorities are. So for some people, that is rehearsing sales calls. You've got these calls to these people coming up on your calendar and you want to prepare for those. we'll brainstorm some of the things that they might object to or some of the things that they might bring up and help you prepare for that. And, basically do some role playing and get you really comfortable with those sales calls. Another thing that we can do is work on your assets, make sure that you've got some good checklists and scripts and other things that are ready to go for you or your sales team, and make sure that those are working the way you want them to, right? So 1 hour of custom consulting per month, exactly. We have a VIP lounge, which is our Facebook group, our private Facebook group. Only customers are in that group. So people who share ideas and other things and say, I keep running into this problem. Has anybody else run into this? Or I'm going to approach maybe the military with a product or service, and I've never done that before. We've got a guy from the Air Force who can help you. Actually, he's with the Army Reserve right now, but he can help you understand what the process is and how that works, and other things that maybe you haven't run across before, but somebody else in that group has. Okay, so that's the VIP lounge. We do a book club where we read a different sales or marketing book each month and talk about how it relates or doesn't relate to aviation. So we send you the book, and everybody's reading the same book that month. We talk about it in the Facebook group and other things. And then we also do a podcast about that. And we've had some of our podcast, some of our insiders anyway, star on our podcast with their thoughts about a book. Sometimes that's a way of getting them some publicity. We are coming out with our 2019 edition of the Down to Earth Social Media Guide to High Altitude Results. And that will talk about, how to do research on LinkedIn, how to use Facebook nowadays in a way that doesn't seem salesy or manipulative, other things like that. Okay. Our calendar that has all of the aviation events and other things, and also our book club discussions and people's birthdays, fun things like that. And events where we actually get together in protein form, is what one of our members talks about, and actually get together and talk in person. So this was at Orlando 2 years ago, right? Same restaurant that we're going to this year. We do a kickoff breakfast for NBAA where our customers get together, which is a lot of fun. These folks are incredibly supportive of each other, and it's so much more fun to do this with other people than to do it alone. We also have, and you're thinking, okay, well, I don't have any money at all, so that's cool. We have 2 scholarships available that we're going to be awarding this year. And we did this 2 years ago when we decided, our group is 99% male, which was true at the time. So we decided we were going to try and get some more women into the group, and we offered a scholarship for women who wanted to be part of that group. This year, we're going to focus on young folks, so people who are ideally in the NBAA YoPros program, those kind of people who maybe haven't gotten a huge career and a huge book of business and a huge portfolio behind them and things. So basically all you have to do is apply for our scholarship. We're going to ask you to write 2 really short paragraphs, one about how the group can help you, and the second one about how you can help the group, what you bring to the table as well. Because we're looking for people who are willing to interact and are going to be good community members of our group. And then that will be renewable each year, where you can either stay in the group as long as you continue to participate and stay in the field and everything else. So if you're interested in the scholarship, I really encourage you to apply. We haven't had a whole lot of applications yet. It's open till September 30th, so you got a pretty good shot at it if you're interested, right?
Yes.
Okay, and that's anybody. We're not looking for women anymore. Now we're we're at a good ratio, right, John?
Yep.
Of men to women. So questions about anything at all, the scholarship or the program or attitude, assets, accountability.
This one says you mentioned a marketing lab. What does that cost?
The marketing lab. Okay.
And what does that really mean?
The marketing lab is everything that we talked about. So the office hours, we just put a big umbrella name on it. We used to call it our insider circle, but that was the name of the Facebook group. So we decided, okay, so the marketing lab includes the insider circle, which is the Facebook group. and the book club and the office hours and the training and the aviation sales and marketing training. We've got a thing that you can download, a product sheet for that sales training that you can get. We charge $4.99 for it, or we're offering that for free with a lab membership, which is $2.79 a month, right?
Yep.
And that includes everything. So the if you were thinking in a mercenary sort of way, which you could, most people do, because you're thinking, how will this benefit me the most? You could join for a month and see if you can get through that training. It's 12 units. Each unit is an hour. So most people take 2 or 3 months to get through that, assuming they do 1 unit a week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you might jump in and be part of the marketing lab for a couple of months and then get the most out of the training and then drop out. My thought is once you get in, you're going to enjoy it enough that you're going to find enough value that it'll justify itself going forward.
Just realize the people you're asking about your product or service are got to be straight with you.
Oh yeah, we
No
have
sugarcoating.
We have a new website that we just developed for one of our members, and we put it out in the group for people to nitpick. And you wouldn't believe the nitpicking that came out, and all of it is good. So it's really, really nice to have that level of security with each other, where we can give each other that kind of feedback. Other questions?
What's the commitment on the $2.79 a month?
The time commitment?
Yeah.
Okay, you could drop out after month 1. In fact, if we don't like you, we will encourage you to drop out after month 1. I'm kidding. If it's not a good fit, of course, any money that you spend with ABCI is absolutely guaranteed. Aviation is a very small field. We cannot afford to have unhappy customers or customers that aren't a good fit in any of our programs. So if it doesn't work out, there's no commitment whatsoever. I would like people to go in with the thought that they're going to do 6 months and make an evaluation of whether or not this is adding to their bottom line, really, because it takes that long. Most of us have a 6 or 8 month sales cycle where we meet somebody 6 or 8 months before we actually get a check from them, because this is aviation. It's a long sales cycle, right? So yeah, I'd like people to go in with the mindset that they're going to spend 6 months at least before they give it a real good evaluation. But if you totally hate it, don't stick around, right? We've never had that happen, but no commitment, right?
Yep.
Okay, more questions?
Nope.
That's it. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us. I am going to put the downloadable items on the screen. Hopefully those will be available to you, and I'm also going to put an offer out there for the so there's the sales call tip sheet. Hopefully you'll have that popping up on your screen momentarily. You may need to click the little red doohickey on the side in order to get that, and there will be a download button for that. So you can see that, and then also I'm going to see if I can make more than one available at a time. Wouldn't that be something?
The 3 red dots again.
Yeah, 3 red dots.
Up to top right.
Okay.
Blue dots.
Blue dots. I'm looking for blue dots. You guys are looking for red dots. So let's see if I can make more than one thing available. Okay, and then that's the aviation sales training, which you can download as well. So
they weren't there at the same time.
Okay, that is the, so you should be able to get to all of those. Let's see what we got here. Okay. Also, if you are interested in joining us for the marketing lab, I'm going to put an offer out there. Basically, that's $2.79 a month, and what happens when you join us is we invite you to the Facebook group, and we send you a big box in the mail that has a binder that has, here's what our goal is each month. Here are some of the things that are going to happen, and here's this month's book. So, and then each additional month, you're going to get an envelope in the mail with the book, and here's what the goal is for the month, and you can schedule your office hours whenever it's convenient for you, and so on. So those are all things that are available to you based on those things. So I'm going to stick around for just another couple of minutes in case anybody has any questions about anything. You can also reach us on basically at our office. which is 702-987-1679. Once again, 702-987-1679. I know you guys are busy, and some of you guys have to jump back to work or grab a drink before you jump back to work or whatever you're doing. So thank you so much for spending some time with us, and we will talk to you again soon.